And it's time now for Tech 24, and today we're looking at the role of social media in the war in Ukraine. And for this, I'm joined by Peter O'Brien in the studio. Hi, Peter.
Hi.
It may seem frivolous to comment on tweets and memes when there's such a devastating loss of life underway.
Yeah, it may seem that way, but in fact, social media is having a direct impact on the way this war is shaping up. What successes Ukraine might have had so far? Well, in part, they're thanks to Zelensky and his team, who are remarkably good at whipping up support online. Zelensky, of course, being a former top media personality, he knows how to create a viral moment, and that this has not just inspired Ukrainians, but people internationally as well, including business leaders and world leaders as well. So moments I'm talking about, like the famous quote, "I don't need a ride, I need ammo," the moment where he went into the streets of Kiev just after the Kremlin had said that he'd fled to film a video of himself denying this. And sometimes not all is exactly what it seems. The Snake Island soldiers, for instance, Zelensky claimed they'd heroically died. Now we know that they're probably alive, but he'd already created such a powerful story around this that this went viral as well, of course.
And there's a wealth of archived material of Zelensky himself from his days as an actor and comedian.
Of course there is. I mean, we've also seen millions of people watching clips of him from his TV show where he played a president, or his dance moves from Dancing with the Stars. My point is that his online star power has resulted in real geopolitical gain. So let me give you a couple of examples. Zelensky actually tweeted to thank Turkey for closing access to the Black Sea, but it was a ploy. Turkey hadn't in fact done this yet, although they subsequently did, closing the Black Sea to all warships, not just Russian ones. His team asked Elon Musk on Twitter for his Starlink satellite infrastructure. They then received this, but how effective it is, we're not yet sure. And perhaps it's not a stretch to say that wins like getting the West to impose such severe sanctions on Russia, or getting tech companies to restrict their services within Russia, are in part because of Zelensky's online clout. In any case, it's clear Russia sees this social media influence as a threat. Today, the chairman of the State Duma actually said that social media was being used as a weapon against them.
It's also, I think, a sign of the generational divide between those who are digitally savvy and those who are firmly still in the analogue days. You mentioned their big tech companies. What role are they playing in all of this?
Well, we have to remember how slow the likes of Meta, Twitter, and Google have been when previously addressing big topics around controversial content. But this time, we've almost seen an existential change overnight because of pressure from Ukrainian politicians and local politicians. Well, they've lurched away from their kind of founding beliefs about free speech after Russian state-backed media was widely condemned for spreading misinformation about the war. Well, these social platforms banned the key Russian state-backed media in Europe and stopped them from running ads globally. Now, in response, Russia restricted access to Twitter and Meta's platforms. It's now very difficult for tens of millions of Russians to access them, although crucially they do still have access to Telegram. Russia has actually today made publishing what they call fake news about the army punishable by 15 years prison. Some Ukrainian officials want the tech giants to go further. They want them to pull out of Russia completely, but these social media companies say, no, it's important that we remain a presence there so that ordinary Russians can have access to external information.
Now, some commentators are calling this the first social media war. Do you buy into that, Peter?
Well, sort of. I think it's been called that because it's really the sheer saturation of videos that we're seeing coming out. And if you think just 30 years ago when we had something so iconic as the Tank Man photo come out of Tiananmen Square, well, now it's kind of mind-boggling to think that every few days we have another video come out of Ukrainian citizens stopping tanks themselves. Also bear in mind that because of TikTok, this is potentially the war which is being most viewed by young people and children around the world ever. So social media has been important in other conflicts in the last 15 years, but this is perhaps what I'd call the first social media world war, if I can, because given how invested people are globally in this conflict and following it online, but also actually participating in it in some ways as well.
And what kind of participation are you actually talking about?
Well, of course, we've had huge online fundraising rounds, both with cryptocurrency and normal currency. We've also had vigilante hackers amass on both sides. So the volunteer IT army of Ukraine now has some 280,000 members, at least on its Telegram account. Social media is actually supplying the real volunteer army in Ukraine as well. A subreddit dedicated to advice on how to get to Ukraine and how to fight there has more than 35,000 members, and it's filled with posts sort of saying, I'm going to join the fight. Even people without IT skills or military experience have been taking part. You can see here, for instance, part of the review bombing that's been going on Russian restaurants in major Russian cities on Google Maps and afisha.ru, which is a Russian lifestyle guide. They read things like this, the review, the food was good, but Putin spoiled our mood by invading Ukraine. And you might think, what's the point of all this? Well, I talked to Natalie Veremieva, who's the director of the NGO Tech Ukraine, which promotes the Ukrainian tech industry. She's actually in Kiev right now, and she says it's all about encouraging Russians to turn against the Kremlin.
This is important because this is not because we want to get some punishment for Russians, but rather we want to create this extra pressure for every ordinary Russians. They will feel that there is something going on that is really, really wrong, and they need to correct it as soon as possible because what is happening is just not right.
Of course, whether this global participation in the social media war persists for very long, we'll have to see. The internet, as we know, has a notoriously short attention span.